When John Richards told his wife Muriel that he wanted to build a shed in their garden, she thought it was a good idea. But John's secret plan was actually to create something very different.
The church plays a big part in Muriel's life, and I thought it would be nice for her to have a chapel.
Taking the service today?
I think the element of surprise was a big thing in my mind.
We've just now got
And I told her, I'm going to have a proper garden shed for once, somewhere where I can work and I can have a television and radio.
As John's so-called garden shed started to take shape, Muriel suddenly grew suspicious.
The Gothic frame went in, and then I realised then what it was going to be. It was a clue, and then he had to tell me. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful day for me, and I could have cried.
Now the couple's big challenge was to scour Britain's reclamation yards to find the right artefacts to go into their special chapel.
This particular crucifixion is bronze, and I wasn't aware until the time I saw this how expensive bronze was. And the particular reclamation yard was in Bristol, and he asked me if I wanted it, and I said, well, I'm looking for something simpler, but I said it's just for a chapel in a garden. And he said, well, that's exactly where that deserves to be, and he knocked a lot of money off, and I bought it back, and Muriel was delighted.
In all, it took John 2.5 years to complete the project.
John is amazing that he took the time and the trouble to do this as a present for me. I think it gives me a lot of inspiration. Most days I go over in my own time and have the peace and tranquility that it gives me.
Let us pray.
And today, what is one of Britain's smallest chapels is proving a big hit with local people. Once a month, John and Muriel hold a special service at the Chapel of the Crosses for the whole village.
The monthly services are very important to us because we like to get involved with all the people that come to that service, and they are regular people that come every time that we have a service.
Not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Was it a romantic idea of mine to build a chapel for my wife? 110% yes. We are romantic people.
I do believe that it was love that brought this on. We will do most things for each other, and that's what we call love, really.
During the more turbulent periods of English history, private chapels were sometimes used as safe havens to help people escape from religious persecution. Here in Oxfordshire, Stoner Park has been in the hands of the same Catholic family for more than 800 years. And like the Stoners themselves, its chapel has managed to survive some very testing times. It's thought that Mass has been celebrated at the Catholic Chapel of the Most Blessed Trinity every week since it was built in the 13th century. And for one period, worshippers' pursuit of their faith became a matter of life and death. But this is where Mass was celebrated in secret.
Yes.
For a couple of hundred years.
Nearly 300.
In 1533, when Henry VIII sparked the Reformation with the break of the Church from Rome, Catholics were soon targeted and persecuted. So many headed to the chapel at Stoner Park.
The families like us who had their own private chapel, they actually provided Mass centres where Mass was celebrated. Those private chapels that probably did more than anything else to help the Catholic faith survive.
The Stoner family paid a heavy price for harbouring Catholics. When government agents learned that priest Edmund Campion had been hidden at the house, one family member was exiled for life and 2 others were jailed.
Bill, this is a fascinating book. Summary of the penal laws.
So this is laws restricting the lives of Catholics?
Indeed, and also explaining what the penalties were. By the end of the 17th century, the number of Catholics had dropped to about 100,000. The whole idea was to extinguish Catholicism.
So Catholics weren't just treated as second-class citizens, they weren't even citizens in some respects?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They couldn't hold a public office. They couldn't go into the law. It must have been for them desperately, desperately depressing.
Today, nearly 200 years after laws were introduced allowing Catholics to worship openly again, the chapel remains a very important place for many.
The Camoys family are always very welcoming here, and you just feel a complete spiritual feeling which envelops you when you're here.
It's very important to welcome people here. There's been a long history of involving our neighbours. So that gives one great hope that the chapel will go on being used and being visited, well, much longer than my life.